Woke up, tech talk, news flash, AI rolling in future in a dash. Digital dreams, cold and safe. We got the vision, never out of sync. AI, rising to the sky. Digital world, we reaching high, not centralized.
Kickstarter probably.
Yeah, exactly. How's your week been? Like, what have you been up to?
This week it's been an interesting week. I've been testing out a lot of a couple of tools on the sales front for AI. It's been interesting.
Sales front?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's things that allow you to. I guess it is shortcutting, the outreach stuff you might usually do on things like LinkedIn and email, etc.
Like automating it and
just
stuff?
automating that entire
Cool.
process. So that's been pretty cool. There's a tool called Fuzzy Sequence, which
wow.
a friend of mine, has been working on quite a lot in the background over out in Singapore. So it's a pretty cool tool. And then the rest of the week has been sort of getting excited and prep for this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm
Look,
excited.
I created a brand. We've got the website up or landing page.
The
We've got the first
podcast is
episode out.
First episode out.
Let's
If you go to,
go.
what's the website again? Plug for the
digitalnexuspodcasts.com.
.com. There you go. And you can email us at digitalnexuspodcast@gmail.com.
That's right. We could set up a proper domain exchange for that.
Yeah, we'll see how popular this gets, if at all. No, I don't think anyone's watching this, but it's funny. Speaking of like Gmails, like people get fooled by like those. Oh my god, BlackRock emailed me, and it's like BlackRock@gmail.com. Like you can have any Gmail, folks. Like, be careful out there.
BlackRock Gmail 3425 at gmail.com.
Yeah. It's the ATO@gmail.com.
It's ATO1946 at gmail.com.
Tell you what, I do appreciate when they try, at least, the scammers, they try. When they just have like some fake ass email that doesn't even make sense, anything to do with the thing they're trying to scam you on, then it's like, come on, just give me a little bit of effort. I'm going to say no, but like try me.
What baffles me about the whole scammer world, and look, I'm probably giving them insight now on how to get better, but AI exists. Why are their emails still so shoddy? Like I'm almost offended at the little effort that they put into some of the emails that get sent to me.
Yeah,
Spelling
exactly.
mistakes, like paragraph errors.
Yeah.
There's just like the designs. That stuff's automated now. What are you doing?
Exactly. Like you are a
Do better.
real bank employee. Email so and so. But it does mean that there's obviously the need to have defenses up and stuff like that, and there are still ways to tell. The one way that you always used to look at the email or whatever, and the email comes from a domain service provider, like so you have your DNS provider basically. And I saw the scam where the DNS got hacked. So the owner of that domain, they got hacked. So it was real emails coming from that place, technically real, but from a scammer that had hacked it. That's super hard to tell then. And now there's ways that I think that could be stopped, because with blockchain, you can have ways that only when you sign up, it's called a ZK proof, and you would have a way that only that person and that company had that relationship at the start, maybe in person or maybe through a sign-up process. So any later transactions would need to have that extra signature on there that can only be proven. Doesn't even matter if it's from the same domain, etc. You just can't. So anyway, we digress.
Well, I was going
Scams
to
are
say, there's some people online who are like some of my favorite YouTubers. I don't know, Scammer Payback and stuff like that, who
Coffeezilla.
they hack
Oh,
the hackers,
right.
which
Yeah,
I love.
yeah.
I love watching them.
And they hack the cameras and they're looking at the call center.
That's exactly it. It's fantastic.
Watch out, folks.
Shout out to those guys. Once we get big, that shout out will actually mean something.
Hells yeah. And the one that you mentioned before, the fuzzy, what are they called? Fuzzy sprout?
Fuzzy Sequence. Shout out to them, yeah.
We'll have to take a look as you explore it more, and we'll do a bit of this today. Some tools that we use day to day. One we made, and then another one that we've been playing around with in Claude. So we'll show some videos on here. So exciting! This is leveling up, and we might even go live with some of those stuff next week. But I wonder how we're going to do it if like stuff is here. We might have to have lapel mic or something, or maybe a mic stand here.
We can start. I mean, we've got the stuff. We can bring it over. We've got the equipment. We can start having mic stands.
We have the technology,
we can
folks.
start plugging directly into the recording.
Wow.
We could even start live streaming this if we wanted to.
Could we then also bring the crowd in here? Could we have a live audience?
I mean, it might be a bit tight. Yeah, the room might be a bit warm. Might get a bit.
Yeah.
All the heavy breathing of.
Yeah, we'll see.
In the future. Well, I mean, your other podcast.
Yeah.
We've got plans to make that
Yeah.
go live.
For some of the
In
events,
recordings?
not for everything because it's a bit much to kind of manage. But like every
Yeah.
now and then, I think we're gonna go like live with that to a select few.
Down
That
at Crypto
depending
Lulu?
on the topic, will be about down at Crypto Lulu or Bar Lulu as it's more publicly known as.
That's
I
right.
think you typed in Crypto Lulu on Gmail on Gmail. Don't type it on Gmail, folks. It's not going to get you anywhere. Don't do Google search on Facebook or TikTok. Yeah. Anyway, but like, yeah, we're going to do some more stuff there. The event that we did this week, and I'll put it out in Founder's Journey, will be all about, and maybe I'll even put this video in Founder's
Ooh,
Journey.
there we go.
One thing I'm thinking about, so for folks that don't know, I was writing, and I still am, for Chain Reaction, which is AusDeFi's newsletter, out each Monday, 8 a.m. And then I was doing Data Science and AI Australia. As the president, I was writing the newsletter for over a year. I've stopped that. I do it for Not Centralized because we talk about AI there. But what I was thinking was a few months ago, I had people that weren't like that. They wanted to like catch up all the time and stuff. And it's great, but they just wanted the updates. I'm like, well, if I publish the updates, maybe the catch ups would be more related to work stuff. I don't mind, but I was just having so many catch ups taking me away from work. So that's why I wrote Founder's Journey. And now I'm even thinking that given that this is like a bit of a recap from what's going on in the week and the stuff that we're seeing across emerging tech, I might have even less to write, which is great.
Just
Videos
send
are
them,
awesome.
send them this.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Or I'll just include it, just another distribution channel because it's all about PR, marketing, SEO, all that stuff. Anyway.
Should we do a couple of shout outs to just
Yeah.
first Stone and Chalk? Obviously, this is where we are. They're a big sponsor for a lot of the work that we do. We work here.
Absolutely. We do
great.
events here.
We do events here.
So we're here on one of the levels where they've got these high chairs. It's kind of like the podcast room. Bring your own equipment, of course, and stuff.
Yep.
But really great stuff that the guys do here. And this building is just full of like startup things.
Such a good ecosystem.
Level 1, Startup Hub. Go
free.
in there for free. Level 2 and 3, Fish Burners, doing great stuff in various events. And like they've got great event space. Level 4 and 5 is
Stone and Chalk.
Stone and Chalk.
And then we got 6, which is
I don't know.
what's the other one? Labs.
Yeah. Tankstream?
Tankstream, that's the one.
Yep, and they're on a few, I
Thank
think.
you.
And then Microsoft Reactor is on level 10 and maybe 11. I can't remember.
It's a great little ecosystem here.
It's ridiculous. Like governments that support this kind of thing, wherever you are watching from, amazing. Do it because this is what fosters innovation. And you see these startups grow, scale, and call back to where it all began.
Exactly.
Just like this podcast.
Got quite a couple of friends who have like built very successful business, and they all started downstairs in the old hub. It's fantastic.
It's amazing. To be in the home in Sydney.
Yep.
The most expensive place to live in the world.
Yep.
But at least we have this.
Exactly. There's one thing. We got one good thing. Let's go.
We'll never afford a house. It's for many people. Some have, which is great, but at least we have this.
Yes. That's I could spiral ages into the housing crisis. But let's avoid that.
Let's talk about
conversation.
tech. Let's talk about tech.
Well, final shout out to
yeah.
Not Centralized, obviously a big sponsor of this, and Digital Village also.
Absolutely.
Leaders in tech innovation, AI, all things fun and exciting in the world. So
The way I see it, every village needs a mark or an idiot or a mark.
Or a marking idiot.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm here for.
You're very marketable.
Quite a remarkable comment you've got there, sir. So, yeah, the puns will just continue. We'll have an episode on puns.
Yeah, let's do it. Next one. Episode 3. It's the AI pun. We could probably ask the AI what are some great puns.
It'll be horrible.
It'd be hilarious.
We're still more creative than
All right,
it.
let's jump in and let's get into the crux of what we hear about.
Okay, go ahead.
Thoughts on AI. It's the leading title. No,
It's still here.
We had a lot of great discussions last week, but obviously one of our key things was, giving the audience a chance to know who we are.
Yeah.
A bit of introductions, and then we talked a couple of topics around AI uses in business, and we wanted to sort of elaborate on a few of those things and expand on them a bit as well.
Absolutely.
So I guess, kicking off on those thoughts of AI and, looking at our notes here, we've got some stuff around programmatic prompting, and I think that led off from a discussion we were having, which is when you are being too simplistic in the language and questions you're putting into potentially your LLMs.
Yep.
and the outputs that you then get, which tends to turn away a lot of businesses because they realize that they're getting bad responses, incorrect responses, or they're getting
Or they call it hallucinations.
hallucinations, or whether it's hallucinations or even references to things that aren't relevant to their business, their query.
Oh, I checked the link and the link doesn't exist and stuff.
Exactly right.
Oh, frustration and stuff. But it's funny because, starting off, one thing is that the term the AI hallucinates technically because it's a probability model, and maybe the data scientists and statisticians will appreciate this, but it hallucinates all the time. Like everything that you are coming back with is technically a hallucination because it's a probability model going, well, what's the next letter?
Exactly.
Feeds that back in, what's the next letter? It's this iterative process back and forth to figure out the next letter. And sure, it looks like sentences, paragraphs, stories, really long outputs. But at the end of the day, it's just adding a next letter and then feeding that output back into the model to go, okay, now that you've got this output, what is the next letter beyond that? It's so simplistic when you break it down and lift the veil on top of it. It's like when AI before generative AI was a whole bunch of like, the joke was that if you lifted the hood like Fred in Scooby-Doo would lift the hood on the ghost, that meme, and it's just nothing but if then else statements, and that was your AI. And it's not wrong, and it's the same thing for this kind of stuff. But at the same time, whilst it sounds simplistic, it's actually quite powerful because what we've realized is that there's patterns in our language. This is why it can sound coherent. And the thing is, if you read something and you go, actually, that's a really good output in your line of work, your profession, your field, then it's technically not a hallucination, or subjectively not a hallucination, because it's you, the subject, that as the one to judge. Now, we can go deeper down into the field of in future whether AI is judging itself and how good that is or not. But I think just like right now, we are prone to going, well, AI hallucinates, and then we just turn away from it. And there is nuance to that. There's a spectrum.
The easiest example, the simplest example, which I think you hinted at, is so if you ever type, and this is mainly for LMMs, particularly if you go into ChatGPT and you say how many R's are in strawberry, it will 9 times out of 10 get it wrong. It'll say 2 or 1.
Wait, there's 5, right?
That's why sometimes it might say 5, and you could either go, no, it's not 2, try again.
Yeah.
No, it's not 1. Try again. No, there is more than 2.
Yeah.
Try again, and it will never get it right.
Yeah.
But if you say to it, how many letters are in strawberry? Please count every single individual letter, put those letters aside, and then give me the number of R's on that. It will get it right. And that's an example of, because you've given it such a simple statement, it's not a mathematical tool, it's a language model. It's looking for patterns. It's not looking for 1 + 1 = 2. It doesn't know how to do that without generating Python script and all that type of stuff, which would spiral into a different conversation.
Exactly.
There.
Oops.
But if you tell it to go through every single individual letter, it starts to go, okay, cool, there's a pattern here. I need this particular letter, and therefore it will give you the correct output. That's a perfect example of why that starts to occur. If you're not descriptive, you're not going to get the right responses.
No, you're precisely right. And what you just described there is one of the 2 elements I think that are important. And, Arturo and I, who've been working on our tool SIKE, this is true for any AI tool, but it's especially so given that we've made it easier to tackle this problem. And it's actually 2 problems. Like I mentioned, hallucinations is one, but it's also, to this point, even if something doesn't hallucinate, as in it gets the details right, you're happy with the details, the content, it's still this randomness of the response, that it can look like paragraphs to you, dot points to me, super summarized to someone else, and really long to another person. And what you described there with the strawberries analogy was that you were basically telling it exactly what steps to take. So if we think about 2 things, one is context. The context is what you want it to look up. The second is the execution steps, what steps you want it to take to get to an answer. And sure, there's a bit of back and forth you might have with AI, but just looking at that first one, context, what it means is that when you just ask ChatGPT, and this is a very simple example, like it will probably do better at this, but just simplistically, if you asked it about Apple, you don't tell it, I mean, Apple computer, Apple phones, I mean, Apple the fruit, it's going to have to guess what the context is. But RAG models, which stands for retrieval augmented generation, is a process, especially when you upload documents or you see AI doing Google search, it is looking up something first and looking for relevant chunks of the query. So if you ask about Apple and you're pointing it to a set of documents that are only about Apple computers, then it's going to look inside those documents for relevant sections of the wording. And then when what it does next is it combines that. It goes, and when you say, tell me about Apple, and it's looked up Apple and it's got the chunks, it'll only answer from those. So that's the context side of things. And there's ways that you can be specific or even just a bit better than being broad with the context. And execution steps is exactly what you did there, where you said that I want you to count each letters out. First step is this, break it down. Next step is like you count the number of R's. The third step is like return, that answer. Being specific with the steps that you want it to take. Those sorts of things are part of the way that you reduce hallucinations and you make things like more accurate or at least less random. That's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And if you once you start to realize this and you start to understand how you can articulate, describe, explain, tell it what to do in a specific way, it unlocks so much power and potential with what you can get out of the system. Like one of the fun things I had doing, even actually making this podcast was a great example, is you can start to get to a point where you can ask it to debate with itself. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see it in real time as you put in a query that goes, we have a particular customer doing X, Y, Z. You are a person that does this, this, and this. I want you to find a solution of this, but then I need you to debate it with these type of personas. And suddenly you're creating this group of smaller LLM models that are starting to argue with each other about a response to then get a final query or a final answer that. And that answer might not be always still the best answer, but it forces it to double check itself and then be a little bit more creative, I guess, with what the output is.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. Like you can actually have it make discussions with itself.
You'd be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Just sit
experts.
back.
Like one's Einstein, the other one's Oppenheimer, another one's blah, blah, blah. But like they call that mixture of experts. So you're getting it to go back and forth. The first one I saw when people were doing this, it wasn't from a research paper. We watch a lot of like YouTube podcasts on AI, and one of them was showing that there was a ball in a cup problem. Like I've got a ball in a cup here, and then I go outside to another room. I turn the cup upside down, and then I come back into this main room. Where is the ball? And when they were doing ChatGPT 3.5, that version couldn't just straight shot, just asking it once and not getting it to think, it would get it wrong, or like half the time it was right. But when they did mixture of experts on GPT 3.5, they were able to get a higher increase a better level of accuracy. But then GPT-4 just had better reasoning when it first came out. And then GPT-4 Turbo and Omni, now it's just inbuilt that it's got better reasoning. And so that's definitely, something that you can take advantage of, because to your point as to how you put it together, this mixture of experts, you can get it to do things like that. People even ask us, and this is a common question we get, I don't know what prompt to ask. Okay, well, what are you after? I'm after this. Well, put in what you're after into the AI, whether it's our tool or others, and then say, please help me craft a better prompt.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know, well, like, because I say to it when I'm not sure, because even I get unsure because I don't know exactly what the features are. And I'll say, please craft a better prompt to help me get a more rounded, reasonable, and well thought out response. If you don't remember what to say there, just put out your prompt and go, what is blockchain? And go, make this better. Make this prompt better. That's it. You can be as simple as that, and you can learn along the way. And you can even do other things, like when you give the output, tell me what else I should be thinking about. So when it gives you that output, it even gives you what next to think about, and you can choose whether you want that as the next prompt. It's crazy what you can do.
And like, there's the thing that then people ask is like, why is this applicable to me, right? So if I'm learning all these different responses, like why would I want to have the tool argue with itself, or why would I want to learn about these different ways of asking questions to get responses in certain ways? And again, it comes back to applicability, but like the education side of it, right? If you're able to start getting the tool to answer in a very specific way that provides a more formal education response, huge bonus, rather than someone going in there just going, hey, can you give me this essay that does this, this, and this, and they're just getting the answer straight away. You can actually tell it to provide it in a meaningful way, probably far superior than, sadly, a lot of the education system is currently doing to people. But then,
absolutely, yeah.
and on the consulting side of things, or even the research side of things, you can start to validate things in a way that is more powerful, and you're not just getting straight answers and then thinking, okay, that's the correct response. You're able to start getting it to challenge what it is doing, which is the whole meaning of research. You're just challenging what you're learning and what you're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not quite an adversarial kind of model that is there to kind of red team as you do in software engineering. Like
Exactly.
you red team to like really test and hone where can you break things. And in the AI space, you do it through prompt engineering.
Yep.
You prompt inject attacks and see if it will give out the instructions that it's not supposed to, or give details of documents it's not supposed to, etc. But what's interesting as well with all of that is that these are discoveries that people are making over time. They're playing around with things in real time, and we're seeing it shared globally. Like this is an industry that I feel like is moving at a really fast pace compared to like other innovations that don't have this level of hype. So the hype can be bad for valuations going crazy and stuff, and people losing money because they invest in something that really wasn't valuable. But it's also good when
Because
it comes
AI's
to
told them to. Was that
maybe. But it's come to the you always got to take everything with a grain of salt. Like whether it's humans doing it or it's AI doing it, you've got to like validate these things. And AI is not just going to be this like quick fix or this silver bullet. Oh, the AI told me this, so therefore I'm going to take this medication. No, there's going to be a doctor or an expert in the process, like human in the loop. But I think one thing that I find quite interesting with all of this is that people are looking at, and maybe this is like the next topic, but people are looking at, and I'm talking about experts here. We see these things initially, like it's like a wave where initially you had people saying that AI is going to take jobs. Oh, okay, let's all be scared. And, I think it was right to be scared, but at the same time,
the fear-mongering?
The fear-mongering is it sells, right? And so it makes the news media, and it sells headlines, and it sells YouTube clicks, and we are going to try not to do that, obviously. But at the same time, it led to this quelling of the fears, assuaging, all these words that I learned with AI. And I did English at uni, or at high school, like we all did, but advanced English. But anyway, I digress, ADD. So the thing is that to quell those fears, people said that tasks are what is going to like be fixed with AI. Don't worry, it's not going to take your job. It's just going to do tasks, mundane tasks even. But then experts, and I have discussions with experts in different fields. Some of them look at AI and go, I don't need it, because that's for mundane tasks. So it's had this double-edged sword effect that experts think they don't need it. I think they do. It's debatable as to whether they need it.
Interesting word. Yes.
Yep.
Agreed.
I think to some extent they do. But I'll take that side, that extreme side. I'm not an extreme guy, otherwise there'd be a fire truck like that'd go after me.
Yeah. Just there's a big siren happening outside right now.
And only the Sith deal in absolutes.
Only the Sith deal.
Sorry, George. But if I take that extreme absolute that experts need AI, what do you have to say to that?
I just got lost in the AI, in the quote that you just made around this, and now I've literally got that whole scene playing out in my head.
I have the high ground.
Obi-Wan Kenobi and pulling out his laser. Oh, his Sith deal in absolute.
I love that show.
Fantastic. Look, I was honing in on the word need, and the ultimate thing around, particularly my role and the work that I do in this space, is around experience. And I think what often gets lost between, especially with specialists, experienced users, people who have specific fields, qualifications, etc. They approach AI with this fear of what it does, but then they also approach it with this, it's been forced upon me. There's a need for it. It's not answering the questions I wanted to answer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to use it. It's challenging what I do.
Yep.
It's like, it's going to take over my job. The old South Park. It's going to take our jobs. It's so
those are people from the future, and AI is coming.
And AI is going for the future. Whereas if you approach it in a way of how can this enhance the experience I'm having
Experience.
the experience that I'm having with the work that I do,
Yeah.
with the tools that I currently
Yep.
use.
Yep.
It changes your mindset around the potential of AI. And so if you can bring it into the stuff that you do and utilize it in a way that enhances the things that you're doing,
Yeah.
it can allow you to focus on the other stuff that could
Yeah.
probably be more meaningful for your work and probably generate you more revenue in the long term. You don't have to spend so
Agreed.
much time on sales or
Yeah.
having these discussions or doing all the minutia pieces within your research or generating lengthy documents when you've already got all the key points mapped out in some other format or whatever. It's
Absolutely.
like, if you approach it with like experience, it really changes the perspective that you have on AI and the work that you do.
And that's actually a really good point. So I thought you might be getting it. Like, obviously, I am not a Sith, obviously.
Questionable.
Although, funnily enough, if folks watch The Acolyte, there is a Filipino/Sith connection.
I love that guy is amazing. We probably
How good
shouldn't
is
be
he?
talking about it if people haven't seen the
No,
thing,
well, I won't say anything further. Probably giving it too much away. So if you have started, ignore anything that I
great
say.
show. Well, we won't release this until probably next week, so hopefully people have seen it all by then.
Yeah, we'll see. But anyway, I thought that maybe you might get into the whole, taking away my extreme hat on. I am very pragmatic, is what I'm saying, and I don't think AI is there as the be all and end all. Certainly not. And even then, we spoke about like the strawberries thing. AI does not do math. Like, so the current AI models, unless you are thinking that GPT-5 is going to be Q-star, and Q-star is a way that language models are supposed to be able to do math. That's a whole nother thing, because right now what they do, if you lift the veil, they're actually just taking your query,
They think.
instructing, instructing Python R SQL code to do something that then does the actual math. So that's like, it's not probabilistic, now it's deterministic, which means it's just black and white. It's just one answer, right? But AI is not good, current AI models are not good at that. But one thing that they are good at, and it's worth testing, is, okay, don't get it to do math and sums and additions and multiplication and correlation analysis or anything like that. But what you could do is, if you had a time series laid out as don't get it to read tables, because then it's actually using Python to read the tables. But if you just had something laid out as a time series history, CSV, comma delimited, as in like, here's the names of the fields and commas in between them, here is all the values, commas in between them. And if you had that as a time series, it can understand that. And what's been interesting is that it's good at anomaly detection. If I feed it 2 time series and I go, now it's not, and we can verify that it's not using Python, because you can see that it doesn't use function calling. Like our app, SIKE, we don't have function calling in there, but
it's using pattern recognition.
It's just using pattern recognition. It's
exactly.
looking at the language. It's just seeing that, okay, well, when this happened, this is also like something that seemed to happen before. You can steer it that way. But digressing and coming back to it.
To clarify, though, something there is around it's not good at maths, which is true. What it is good, though, is generating code. So which is why it uses Python in the first place. So it's really good at you instructing it. I need to be able to do something like this to this set, and it goes, great. Here's a code example we've seen do something similar to it.
Yeah.
It will generate that Python or other scripts. Like a lot of the programs do a lot of different scripts now. It's pretty amazing, and then it uses that script to then, as you said, give you the one answer.
Something.
So it's not having to do probability to get a result. It's actually doing an applicable on the spot equation to the problem that you're trying to solve. And which is why AI isn't solving the problem. It's using AI to generate a code, and the code then solves the problem.
But it's helping you get there, right? Like, so I've seen this thing where my thoughts on it are that AI is going to be this efficiency gain, even if it means that to get a really accurate answer, humans have to be in the loop. And I've seen arguments from some people that say that, well, that's, having humans in the loop is just inefficient. Like, whether it's inefficient or not, it's inefficient. If you're going from 5 hours to do something down to 1 hour, I don't care what you say, that is efficiency right 100%. There, even if humans have to be involved. But the second thing is that I don't agree that we have to achieve 100% automation from day one, right? We're still kind of day one of this journey. Where we're going to be in 100 years from now, like, it's crazy when you look at what technology was 100 years ago versus what we can do now. As long as an EMP doesn't go off from the sun,
reset everything.
Everything is reset. That's a big problem.
Yeah, you've got a point here around engineers and hurdles, and I really like this insight in there I think we raised this in the last episode. If you went back around, like 100 years ago, people did things differently.
Yeah.
You know, even further back then, we had horses and carts, and technology innovates and gets you to
We
different
still have
states.
horses, I think.
But yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Do they exist? I don't know.
Are they AI?
I think the environment's killing them off. It's but at every single point of those innovation releases within the world, there was always negativity. There was always nuances that people had to fight to get the technology into
what makes
the
people
hands
people.
of users. Exactly, what makes people people. And that hurdle, as you've rightly said, does create opportunity off the back end, though, whether it's opening up different types of jobs, different types of roles, opening up different ways of thinking, enhancing the ways that we think about things. And yet there's definitely going to be spaces where there will be, sadly, losses, but unfortunately that is the nature of how the world evolves. It's how business evolves. A business, when it starts off, and it's look at how OpenAI started. It was, and how it becomes within the years that pass. People lose jobs, the business moves on, new technology comes out, it changes how it does things, which opens up new roles, but unfortunately you lose others.
Oh, exactly. Speaking of roles and stuff there, and even just like OpenAI, one is that I can't remember the website. We'll have to put it in the show notes, but there's like a website that tracks job movements and stuff. And they're seeing a lot of movements from companies like Google to OpenAI, which is fascinating because so those losses at certain companies, there's a net gain, I guess, because people move into the AI space. But speaking of OpenAI, it reminded me of the analogy of the tortoise and the tortoise and the hare. Yeah, the turtle and the hare, the turtle and the rabbit. Depending on what part of the world you're from, I'm sure there is a similar kind of story for this. But the turtle, in this case, being Anthropic and even others, and the rabbit being OpenAI, who's just known as just rapid deployment of things. And what I'm highlighting is that they put out that we're going to do Sora as a way to, Google came out with, we've got 1 million tokens, and the next day, OpenAI is overshadowed that news with Sora, and it looks amazing for this video generation, but then it's not released yet, or few people have access to it. And so Anthropic, which was just slow and steady, when they announced something, stuff came out. And then they saw it's popular, they go, and we've also got this. And when they announced it, it came out. And there's other companies like Runway and Luma, which does Dream Machine, which we played around with, turning your static images into animations. It didn't do it well enough for this. But, I should have just done it on this image alone and getting these guys to move, which we'll do for the next episode, even though it takes hours to generate. But my point is that slow and steady and releasing things as you're making it is definitely back in vogue when there's been a whole lot of hot air. And you can see videos of it's like games, right? Where these games, they look so great at E3 and these other gaming conventions and stuff. When it's released, or if it is released, it's not as good.
Yeah, there's lots of reason why that occurs, from system performance to consoles, and so there's lots of arguments around that. But it's spot on. It's very true around. It's that that MVP release now has come back in fashion for these big companies, which is fantastic. It means that you're putting tools into people's hands earlier and getting them to test and play around and feedback, and then move on to the next thing a lot faster than if you just went, hey, here's this thing, oh crap, we got to spend years trying to fix it because it's horrible, which gaming companies do a lot of that just traditionally.
I think it's a tale as old as time. And going back to tale as old as time, what you said there about people just fearing these things. We saw it with blockchain and crypto because we're working in that space, and many people might think it's scams, but you'll not know it, but your payments and the ways that we do business will just be much better because of blockchain technology that is just continuing to be worked on, even though all the hypey stuff crashes and burns and comes back again. But things like digital escrows, like in construction, a lot of tradies don't do escrows because it's very expensive, and yet with blockchain we can do it, and we did it with the RBA on a project there, and we're doing it with other projects we're working on. But the technology, if it's good, it will prevail. And it's the same thing with AI. I see the same messages that crypto critics or tech critics say, oh, it's all the hype stuff, where's the real value and stuff. And it's just it's being built up, you're just not hearing about it because the really massive things that have fallen over or really hypey stuff is what sells.
It's so true. I mean, I look at NFTs as the perfect example where the technology that underpins it is absolutely amazing. Like the stuff you can do from, ownership of digital content to ticketing to transferring of assets, etc. Like that stuff is really, really cool. And it could have been done straight away when it launched, but it wasn't the hype thing.
Let's do the images.
It was
and
purchasing
stuff.
images and like all these pictures online. And suddenly people latch onto that.
Yeah.
$50 million pictures get sold, and then a week later it's like, why did we do this?
I do
wonder,
of
course,
though,
why did we do this? It's like selling a digital picture. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
The technology was not built for this. It was built for something better.
And, like I get the trading cards analogy and like Top Shot and like some of these other things were some of the first NFTs that were out there. And obviously the first NFTs were not that. There's things like Rare Pepes and other. You can go down a rabbit hole, obviously generalizing, but you're absolutely right that there's this really powerful technology, and it's even being looked at in real smart scenarios, such as it is a digital ID because it's non-fungible, it's unique. It is a digital ID for your uni degree, and we're seeing other countries do this kind of thing, right? Where then NFT is that, and then what gets attached to that are your courses, and it's an immutable record on a blockchain that is hopefully like a good enough blockchain that doesn't go down. And that is just a smarter way to do it rather than where's my record, where's the email, I have to call the place again. Like these things are just better.
And not even university. Like you've got places like, is it Estonia and other areas where they've actually got their whole system within the government and everyone's IDs is now managed on the blockchain. It's fantastic. So you suddenly have this semi-decentralized model. Very important thing to put in that semi-decentralized model for you to have control of your data and how it gets used. And like that is what the technology was built for. And that is like a really fantastic application of it rather than our traditional sense in a, where it potentially gets hacked, potentially gets stolen. I can't control who it gets shared with. One government entity has it and medical people have it, and it's just all over the place and you have no oversight of that control.
Exactly. It's a problem.
It's a massive problem. Yeah.
I think that as well on that, the semi-decentralized, when we're going to the blockchain side of things, we'll bring it back to AI soon, but like one thing that people argue for is like, oh, it's not decentralized. And it's like, that's kind of like subjective. You can look at Ethereum and like other things and go, well, that's not really decentralized. And other people can look at it another way and go, that's decentralized enough. My point is that when it comes to these projects, there's a lot of idealistic people that come into this space and they'll go, I want it completely decentralized off the grid. And there's benefits of decentralization, but then to make it work, there's always elements of centralization. And so the saying goes that you decentralize until it hurts. You decentralize as much as you can, but to make it work, you centralize it. So centralize it until it works. And so this is balance of the spectrum where you're going.
The perfect example of that is oversight and security. If something is purely decentralized, if it is 100% decentralized, there's no oversight and there's no security on that. Like you're relying on the chain and the pass through that information, which is, in some instances it is very accurate. In many other though, there's a lot of risk there. And so once you put oversight on it, you have an entity that just makes sure there's management and control. You're now detaching it from that decentralization. Suddenly it's becoming slightly centralized. That's one example of the many different ways that obviously there is a need for that.
Absolutely.
Management.
No, agreed. Shall we get some examples?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
What are you thinking? Should we go to examples first, or you want to go to some other articles and stuff? Maybe we go examples, then we jump back into articles.
I like it.
I prepared some examples, if I may.
Yes.
Be so bold as to show some examples. So
I like this.
So the first one I'll do is all about a tool that some people have only just started to see that we do. Like there are still some people that obviously we do a lot of blockchain stuff, and we got into AI space, and I think we did this in the background last week because we were training people on how to use ChatGPT. We were using it ourselves as part of the advisory and consulting work, and even just managing the operations of the various businesses. And we saw this need for privacy-focused AI tools, and so we built SIKE, which sits with Azure services, which means it stays here in Australia, like it doesn't leave the shores, which is great. But adding features in there, we've started to realize, oh, hang on a second, we need to have a new feature because this is the bugbear that I'm having. Like, great, I've got a private AI, but it's not easy to do things like mimicking. And this is something that people are asking us more about. how do I get an AI that can mimic what it is that I've got without having to always feed it my style, my notes and stuff. And so one thing I want to show on here, so what we're seeing on screen, and you'll see it on the video as well, is that here is something where we've got this thing called Dreams where we can set up various things. Like in this case, I've got articles, things that I've written about because I want it to be in that kind of style. And then another thing that we can do in here is like, now that it's got my style, I want it to do things like, I'll call that style. I want it to do things like add an about section about me. And so I can do that, my thoughts, my feelings, you know, what I think about the world. And then let's say there's a news article and here's something from the AFR talking about AI that came out the other day. I can copy that in and here's this like news article. Now, what I can do then is I can talk to it. I can go, well, those different notes there that I've laid out, here I'm having to remember what's a quote that and I can do this is great, I can refer to each of the notes there, but I have to remember what this query is to get it to write in the style. Like I've given it my style of writing, I've given it an about me, and I've given it the news article. And that's great, but the problem is like and you've got those ingredients there, but you still always have to remember, how do I actually piece that together to get the same style of output? So one thing that we've seen is better is the first part, instead of just throwing all your articles in, because that leads to really lengthy prompts, what you can do is take a whole bunch of articles, preferably ones that relate to the same kind of topic, but tell me about the style and tone of this author and then give me quote examples, because if you do that, and what we're seeing come out on screen here is it's taking those articles and it's going, Mark is informative and analytical, and here's examples of that. Mark is also optimistic and forward-looking tone in his writing. Here are examples, because if you and I are both the same description, informal and optimistic, it's going to be different for your writing versus mine.
For the people who are listening in, what you're not seeing is a screen where you're able to input in one window your prompts, your information, your articles that you may be referencing, and then in the same screen, a secondary box appears to give you the suggestive outputs that you have some choices around. Whereas in the traditional, I mean, we've seen ChatGPT kind of move in this way as well with the thread on the options of what's your best response. But at the same time, you're still in this entire single parallel view, really long, dropping information, box by text box. Whereas here, you're able to Post-it control notes. Your windows in Post-it note format. Yeah, very cool.
And we set it up that way because we were having these really lengthy conversations and prompts, and so we created this Post-it notes thing, and you can be specific. We spoke before at the start about the context. The great thing about Dreams is that having these Post-it notes, you can talk specifically just to those Post-it notes. But another thing that we've got here is that if I have to remember, even if I've got all those Post-it notes, I have to remember what's the query I want to ask about it. I was saving that in Google Drive. I was writing it down on my hand. I was like doing whatever, right? But you got to remember the exact query. Guess what? I can add another Post-it note in there, which is something that we'll call instructions. It could be anything else. But if I add that, I can put in step by step what it is that I want it to do. So I give it a label. That's what I'm doing on screen here. And then I'm writing in steps. Your mark, refer to the about note. Analyze the news note. Respond in the style note. And then I can even edit those steps. I said in here, like I want it to give me 3 key points and a historical quote. I'm going to take away the historical quote. I just want it to do the 3 key points. And so what it ends up meaning is that here's the final one. Now that it's got the instructions as a note there, I can just simply say at the top, run instructions. That's it. And anyone who uses this same set of ingredients will get the same kind of output. So this comes from like the frustrations that we had as a business using these tools and from customers having the same kind of thing. So if you were to run something like this, you would just be able to control it more. And all of this, if we go back to how do you control hallucinations? How do you control the randomness? You control the context. So what are in the notes? You control the execution steps as well.
You're setting a set of command prompts that you're able to then reference when whatever the scenario is. So you could have a whole bunch of input that you may have created. You may even have secure and private documents that the tool is linked into.
Yep.
And then all you need to do is input a command that you would have defined with a set of steps, and that will give you the outputs in the consistent format, right?
That's
that
it.
you rather than you having to think about the same command and that same prompt every single time and retyping it in or going, I need to remember what steps 1 through 6, or you might do something slightly different last time and go, why didn't I get a similar output?
And that's
this creates that consistency.
It's what leads to the frustrations that ordinary people have in the mainstream of using these tools. It's like, what prompt do I remember? And it's like, well, if we just set up the tools in better ways like we have here, you can do that. Now, this is one way to do it. We even have AI agents that just have these instructions. I've written these out. But if you've got something that you need to repeat over and over again, we've got another section where there's AI agents that are just instructed to do this. And it's the same principles.
And the more powerful, even additional powerful element there is telling it where to pull certain insights from in a certain way as well. So it's not just going step 1, do this, step 2, do this. It could be doing step 3, do this, but always reference X, Y, Z when you do this one.
Yeah.
Step 4, always reference these things. And therefore you're removing your hallucinations in a more consistent manner as well, right?
And you can even get them to do things like where they check each other at the end. You know, you have these AI agents that they do various steps, but then there's a compliance agent at the end, or even one where I've seen it for lengthier documents. This is where the human expertise comes in. But if you get an agent to look up something from a 1,000-page document, and then it may or may not find all of those references, you can get another agent to refer to the output of that first agent, and then also look at the document and go, did that first agent miss anything? And that's when it really gets more powerful. So really interesting stuff there. So I thought I'd just highlight that. We're going to do more, insights for our clients and people that want to use SIKE and yourselves on how to be. This is all part of programmatic. We call it semantic programming, or I see the language and way we use like AI tools. We're thinking like programmers. It's just that our coding language is English.
It's now English, right?
Or another language, but English is what we've got here. So
it was actually in we run a Friday little networking event where we bring some people and we have discussions, and one of them was in that exact line, what is the future of coding? And it's like,
fantastic.
We all got to the conclusion that it's just going to be, it'll be all in English. If we think about how it's gone now with React and JavaScript, they're very kind of written code languages with like all their reference points in there. I'm using the wrong terminology because I'm not a developer, but they've got, databases of insights that it pulls all that stuff from.
Exactly.
And the future is just going to be us going, do this, and boom, that's your coding language.
If you can think logically and you know how to lay out your language, you can win hackathons. There was a project manager, not a coder. Maybe she knows a little bit of code. She understands it at least, but not is the one that is writing the code. She runs teams. She won a hackathon last year from just using AI tools. But something that you mentioned before, and we were talking about programming and like the code that comes up in Python scripts. Have you played around with Claude 3.5 much?
A very high level, but it's amazing.
It's crazy, right? So what I wanted to show on screen here were two things. A simple one where I've got Claude. Basically, this is on LinkedIn, a guy that I follow. Shout out to Tommy Reguli. He's got some great charts on LinkedIn. This is a chart that he had on Ethereum and where all the Ethereum is across smart contracts, etc. And what I did, I took that image and I said to Claude, can you recreate this chart? But I want you to make it so that I can actually play around with the data that's in there. I want you to recreate the look and feel of it, but like I want to change the numbers. I want to change the titles of the chart and stuff. Now, ChatGPT, you can do this kind of stuff and it will give you the code, but then you have to apply the code. And so what we're seeing on screen here is that I've had that prompt. It's now going to write up the code. And it will basically go, okay, I'll do a React component. Here's the code. I can see it on a side screen, which is great. And then what we'll see in a second is that it will actually show you a preview. Now, it's still limited in terms of what it can show, but here's a preview where, literally I can change numbers in there. I can now have that chart and I could apply that code to a website. I could apply that code into an app. I used to do a lot of data analytics apps. I built ETF tracking tools and stuff. I might have a go at doing this kind of stuff again. But the cool thing is that you can actually do this kind of stuff. It's I'm
looking away from the camera, but I don't know if you can see how big my smile is right now just looking at this.
I've never seen Chris happier, except even on the day of his no. Shout outs to Gabby.
Sorry, Gabby.
And Lana. But the last one I want to show you from Claude is, speaking of charts, I used to work in data analytics and I built stuff with Power BI, with ClickView, with all these other ClickSense and all these other tools. And I built something called ETF Tracker that I had been updating for a little while, but then I stopped doing that because I've just been so busy with all these other things. But I fed it images of ETF Tracker and I said, I want you to recreate this. And I had a little back and forth because it doesn't always get things right. So I'm saying here's something in Power BI with 2 images. And I just wanted it to create the charts it sees on screen. So it's actually making up the values from what it can see. But I also said, I've got a menu that pops up. Can you recreate the menu? That was my first part. So we're watching this and it gets it wrong. It goes, oh, well, I can't show it in the preview because it's using a library that the preview area doesn't like. And so I said, well, do it again with supported libraries. Now, fun fact, this will still get it wrong. It eventually gets it right because of the reason I'm showing the video, but you can go back and forth with this. So I said, well, can you do it with supported libraries? It still did it with non-supported. I said, okay, ignore the bar chart icon library that you're trying to use and redo it again. And it uses now a library that it's better at. And it's not as good looking, no doubt, but this is the way that a non-React kind of programmer can take something off the web, like a website, and try to get it to recreate. And here's the pop-up.
It even does the navigation on
Yes,
the side. That's crazy.
So you would then take that code and iterate on it. Now, it's limited in terms of Claude 3.5 free, right? You can't do as much as that, or you would hit limits there in terms of the context window size in terms of the conversation. But if you pay your $22 US a month, you unlock more context windows. So I'm still exploring, but dude, fascinating stuff.
Well, imagine if you put in a designed website.
Yeah.
Which is, they're the examples that I've played with, is you will
What
actually get...
Have you put in like a fully designed kind of website?
Not fully designed, but like pulled out an image or two that I've shaped in Figma. It's one of my UX projects and dropped it in there. And it's created a like mostly interactive page, like almost to perfection.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. You know, there's still a lot of things that gets wrong when you know, particularly when it comes to scalability across devices and stuff like that. But the fact that you are skyrocketing from a picture into a landing page that is actually quite functional is like, it just blows my mind. And
I saw someone like doing, they put in Spotify and it recreated Spotify without all the images, but it's still recreated.
It's still recreated. That's exactly right. And like for me, that's the power of that is I do a lot of prototyping with clients and customers, right? And so I can elevate that ability to prototype now. And Figma has a few features where you can do things like that, but nowhere near as powerful as what we're just witnessing there in Claude.
That's crazy.
And so I could create these semi-prototypes that are clickable, presentable to people just by going, hey, can you please recreate this image as a real website? Like, or an application, like just done.
What happens in a world where, I mean, initially there's only a few people that are really looking at, I mean, not a few, there's a lot of people looking at this, but I think experts will be the ones that just because it gets stuck. It doesn't just do it off a simple prompt. It doesn't just go, here's a website, here's a few images, make this interactive. It won't do that. I have to go back and forth. I have to tell it that library doesn't work, do this. Expertise is still kind of needed.
Yeah.
But in a world where we get to just one shot, you know, I don't have to like go back and forth with it too much and anyone can almost do that. What do experts then do?
That's an excellent question. That was one of the questions that we had raised in our session we had a few weeks ago. Where is the relevant? I guess so in both instances, from an experts through to what are the developers going to do? Like people who are currently building these things from scratch using, you know, their own libraries or the React and all that, etc. Like their jobs are going to narrow down in terms of what they can do. For me, it's going to be a while, I think, till AI gets to a point where it is going to be 100% able to give you the correct, like the output that you need.
Agreed.
And like, I'm talking like 5-10 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a need for that. One, this is one of the things that I firmly believe will always be the case is it's going to have that creativity level. You're still going to need to have that human creative element that AI can't achieve because it is machine learning. It is literally just gathering a whole bunch of insights on everything that everyone's done and giving an estimated output, right?
Yeah.
So it's for a long time, it's not going to be acting like a human and be creative. So it's going to be that creative sprinkle that specialists or developers and designers, etc., are always going to be wanting to put on top of things, which I think will accelerate innovation. But we'll see what happens there. The other part of it is when it comes to development is less of the creativity, but also the validation, the checks, making sure, adding that extra touches that the AI just can't do straight out of the box, right? So there'll still be a need for those roles. And those people who have previously had to do a lot of development, sadly, I think a lot of those skills will diminish, but they will become specialized in how do we get it from what the AI has done to this hyped up, amazing experience off the back end.
Agreed.
What will twist everything that we do in the future is that I think the standards of what people are expecting in the market are going to accelerate upwards. And we're already at a pretty high level of what businesses are expected to deliver.
Yeah.
But now with AI doing majority of the work, there's going to be a higher expectation than ever with the stuff that gets produced, from applications to products that are developed. And that is going to be solved by human elements in the short term. And us going, what is the standard that we have to meet? And then how do I adjust and make that better?
You touch on a point there that I was going to talk about something else, but like I'll just touch on this. But rising standards, I see it with folks like Ethan Mollick, on LinkedIn. He's an educator. I can't remember which uni it is. Sorry, shout outs to Ethan. Has great content and research and wrote a really good book on this AI space called Co-Intelligence. Augmented between man and machine. And I like his views and stuff, basically. And one thing that he said is with his classes, it's no longer this thing where you just expect the same outputs that people had before. But now with AI, you actually have to increase and raise the bar so much more. So
Definitely.
It has to be much higher in terms of expectation. But what this leads to, and just like what you said, Jack, consumer expectations need to be higher. Educators and the outputs from education need to be higher and stuff, given that there's AI. That's the way that we adjust. Rather than banning it, let's lift the standards, right? But what happens when, let's just say that there are some in the university, and look, I get it that we all have to try to do this, but there may be, as the transition happens, some students that are really embracing it and they just embracing the higher level challenges, and some that go, well, look, if I'm able to prove that I don't use AI, I just want to show that I use my brain and stuff for this. Now, it is like maybe it's a mixture of different types of tests. You have to show stuff where it's not AI and it's more oral exams and stuff like that, and you're just like speaking, presenting, and doing that kind of stuff, as well as where let loose, kind of like Peter Thiel of wherever he's from, saying that we should have an Olympics where everyone just takes drugs. Everyone can just use AI, go ham, see what you can create.
Yep.
Like, what do you think about that? Like, as we transition the two worlds, the artisanal, I'm not using AI, I'm using my hands and my brain, versus I'm augmented, I'm using AI.
I think that is going to be the case. Like, especially, it's already happening now, right? There are specific, even art competitions now where there's an AI related only art competition, and then, just like when they had the real art competition, someone submitted an AI and won, and the recent one, someone submitted a hand draw or a custom one that they had built themselves or designed themselves, and they won. And everyone's like, oh, why can you submit this as an AI comp? It's like, you did the same thing like months ago. But that is definitely, I reckon that will definitely happen, that shift of, I mean, think about it, there's lots of stuff in the world now where we do that. It's where racing now will start being electric cars versus the petrol cars.
Oh,
It's
exactly.
like, it's all those types of things. There's always going to be a division between, what is manual versus what is automated. And then how do we create a world or a competition around the automation versus around the human element, which is, which is the creative side of it. You don't want to get rid of creative elements. You don't want to get rid of how a person who is athletic is pushing themselves as much as they can without the use of drugs. Of course, those people need to compete with each other. There should always be a space for that, separate from the people who want to enhance themselves in certain ways.
It'd be really funny if, right now, and we call it the Paralympics and some call it like the Special Olympics and stuff, especially in the States, but it'd be really funny in the future world where AI and like enhanced humans become a thing, and that's the norm. And the non-enhanced humans,
stuff in our heads, like, it's already human testing.
Neuralink, but maybe because you're a smarter athlete now in team sports or even individual sports like tennis. But like, imagine if it was like you become this. The norm is enhanced athletes, and the non-norm, the abnormal, of what we consider today normal, like the normal athletes that run and jump and kick and all that. That becomes Special Olympics now. Like the roles reverse. Maybe.
I mean, look at the cinema world, right? Like technology has moved so far now that there's so many like Marvel, all this. Everything has a digital enhancement to it. And then you get someone like Christopher Nolan who releases the movie, doesn't use any sort of tech. He does it all by hand, and then it's like, oh wow, he's done this thing that we used to do for the last 100 years of cinema.
To a black hole for Interstellar. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy. But it's just like there will be that separation, and I think exactly what you said. It will become the unique thing to do. Like, oh, that person does it by hand. Oh, who does that anymore?
Can I just say something on the expertise stuff? Go ahead.
When was the last time you drove a manual car?
just to let folks know, I steer my vehicle. I know I don't drive.
But that's it. Like anyone who drives a manual car now, I mean, especially in Australia, probably a bit of America. I think there's still parts of Europe that are, you know.
I don't get why they call it automatic. I still have to steer. It's weird.
Well, I mean, if you have a Tesla, you don't have to.
Yeah.
But
yeah, you're right.
But there are so many, especially the generation coming up.
Yeah.
The idea that they have to change gear blows their mind. Like it's now a skill.
It's like in Back to the Future, they go to the future and Marty's like shooting at the arcade machine and the kid next to him goes, you have to use your hand. It's like a baby's toy. But I just want to say on the expertise thing, creativity. One thing, and this is my argument that I think experts are absolutely needed. So these things are by very nature, they're not creative. They might look like they reason, but the only way they can do that is that they have something in their training set, whether it is the raw AI model or you've introduced new knowledge into it via RAG by adding documents, etc. But either way, its ability to reason is limited. Yes, it's gotten better, but it's still limited compared to like human experts and stuff. And there's a lot of tests and I'm sure there will be breakthroughs. What I'm saying is that where we're at now, which is the worst AI is ever going to be, that Claude stuff, that's the worst it's going to be because it's always getting better. But when you think about experts, where they come in is that the reason I think experts are needed in this is they know the special knowledge, they know the special source. If you add your special, it's going to sound wrong. If you add your expertise into this, sorry, this is not PG, folks, but if you add your expertise into this, you will get, that's where the expertise is really powerful because the stuff the model doesn't know, bring in digital village expertise, bringing in SIKE and not centralized expertise, and our friends at Fry, shout outs to them. Like the expertise that they bring into it is going to make the difference. And these AI models, at least at the very moment, they're like Memento. Remember that movie from Guy Pearce?
Great movie. Where
It's
you're work your life backwards.
Yeah, these things, and now ChatGPT is starting to have memory, starting to write on its arm and stuff. Oh, Chris said this. Oh, I'm talking to Chris, right? Because it always resets the conversations. And yes, they'll get smarter, but for the very least, right now, experts make the difference by bringing in the special knowledge.
Exactly.
Got to be careful how I say that.
Or if you know how to use GPTs, you can also house your knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And you guys are great at that, and we played around with it. But yeah, what else have you got in your list?
Well, I'm thinking like, do we want to touch on some news? Also, I'm pretty interested in NVIDIA's obviously been a huge player in the AI space, and we've seen their stocks rise exponentially.
Crazy. Wish I was on that train earlier.
Man, and people are saying if they're not in your portfolio, then you don't have a portfolio.
Yep.
140 and 50%. I think it's dropped like down 14% maybe.
They lost $600 million, which was only like 6% of the portfolio.
It's out of the hundreds of billions that they have. The thing that interests me, though, is because they've been such a big player in the space, they have definitely brought eyes on the need to also support the development in that space.
Correct, yeah.
And they've created a program of work which supports founders, new startups, scale-ups in terms of how they can better adopt AI and bring AI into the market as well. And that's something that I know you've also had an opportunity to explore. And I thought we'd touch on that quickly because I think there are a lot of people out there who are on this journey who are probably not aware of this and should definitely take advantage of it if they can.
Very good point. NVIDIA has supported, and it started with conversations we had with a few folks that are here in Australia from the NVIDIA team that wanted to do something with an association that we're part of, and it's got a new president. I was co-president before with Arturo, and it's called the Data Science and AI Association of Australia, and NVIDIA sponsored 2 of the last events. There was one last week where there was some really great presentations, and a lot of insights into how NVIDIA thinks about AI, the thought leadership that they've got in the space. They didn't come first, but they are definitely one of the key powerful ones that are helping with infrastructure, helping with understanding what is possible, especially because you need GPUs for this. And it's not just that they're providing that hardware, these circuit boards, etc., but they're also supporting the community in other ways. And so there's something called the Inception program that if you're working in the AI space, you become part of this Inception program and it helps you connect with other folks using NVIDIA products. They give you ways that they can help support what it is that you're building, depending on if you need GPUs or you need other support with the models that you're building. And the best thing, at least for us, is that they'll introduce us to their network. they'll help us get into other markets. The support there is, we've only just started. It's been a few months. We've already been on the Inception program, but because we've been busy building out other things, we haven't dived into it as much. But it's certainly something that people should explore. Whether you're early stage, like I've seen some, or whether you're a bit more mature and like MVP and beyond level. I mean, what we're doing with SIKE is we're going for a Series A, right? So we're on that beyond mature kind of like a startup kind of phase. Technically, startup depends on the eye of the beholder. My point is that NVIDIA is there to support all of this. And in Australia, they've got representatives here. And we even had Hare, who's from Singapore, fly down last week to give this presentation. So around the APAC region, there's really great stuff going on from them.
Yeah, so big shout out to, I thought that was a really good call out, just particularly your journey. And I find it very interesting and quite a powerful opportunity for businesses coming into things.
Absolutely. Jensen, if you want to, do any shout outs and giveaways and stuff, we are open to sponsorship.
Yeah, yes, please. But I mean, they have to be cautious because I know there's a lot of other tech that's coming out that's going to challenge them. And we got, I don't want to side rail too much, and we can talk about this in another session. We obviously got Snapdragon. You got Apple with their M1 or now M3 coming out, M4 chips that are really challenging that market sector. Like the need for these AI chips are going to start to decline, but mainly in the consumer hands, I think, in the short term. But it's very interesting what's happening now on the mobile technology space to be able to elevate how we utilize AI. We've got laptops, we've got Windows already bringing out AI embedded into their machines. They're calling them AI devices. Have
you bought one?
With their Snapdragon devices. But it's pretty exciting what's happening from a technology space, not just the digital that is supporting this this way forward.
It's definitely this wide ecosystem, and it speaks to like a lot of people when you type in NVIDIA, like you'll see things going on with them, but you'll probably see some of because it sells, right? The negative news, which is like, is it overhyped? Is it this? Is it that?
Yeah.
It's like, go back 20 years. Go back 40 years.
I was going to say 20 years.
Go back 40 years to the 80s when Apple, was this thing, early 80s and stuff, and the Lisa and all these like devices they had. And sure, they went through ups and downs, kicked out Steve Jobs, brought him back, etc. But if you were there back then and you're like, look at this, it only does this, it's not that great. And look, they've just had this hit, it's limited and stuff. We have no idea what's going to happen in the next 10 years. We're really bad at predicting. This is why, if we were good at predicting, I think there would be an argument that there's no markets anymore, because if everyone's good at predicting, there's no arbitrage, there's no value. Because we're bad at predicting things, some people get lucky.
I would be rich. We would be living a comfortable life in
if
a mansion.
Individuals were,
I'd have an unlimited amount of blockchain, Bitcoin in my pocket. Prediction is.
It's crazy. So we have no idea where it's going to head, and I think that
that's what makes it exciting.
All we can do, I think the best bet is to get involved. Like this is by us getting involved in working with these tools, by trying them out, by consulting, by building products. This is like investing, but your time and energy into being part of it versus investing other people. They just sit on the sides, and that's fine because they don't work in this space, but they invest through, normal investments and stuff. But either way, get involved, because this is the worst it's going to be. It's going that way.
And this is where the terminology of innovation comes in. It's not necessarily about creating the new, best, latest and thing. It's about trying, learning, failing, and adapting and moving on. And you may not fail. You may succeed. You may find that thing. You may adapt that thing that completely changes how you work in your environment. And you may scrape off hundreds of millions of dollars of overheads because of some AI tool, or not even an AI tool, just a different tool. And that's the idea of innovation. So,
agreed.
Just try.
You got to try. You got to, you got
to
get
left
into
behind.
it.
That's it.
You can get left behind. You don't have to be the first, but even if you are the last, at least you're involved. But at the same time, I think you just have to find a way that makes you comfortable. Because I definitely don't like when people feel like they're forced into things. Because being coerced in a negative way, like encouraged is very different to being coerced and stuff. And
Agreed.
You can, if you're willing to go to some of the events that we run, like Oz DeFi Association events, or go to the Fishburners event next week, that is an AI panel that's run by Dell, right? And I'll be on the panel. But you got to go to these various events, or watch videos in the comfort of your own home, or on the train or bus, or listen to a podcast like the Digital Nexus podcast on your favorite podcast player.
There's a self plug. Let's go.
Got to insert that in there. We'll do smart ways to insert ads in here if we ever get sponsors.
Yeah, I think it's good. No, we'll get there. No, I think it's been a good chat today. Thank you everyone for listening. Subscribe, add in a comment if you can. Tell your friends about the show and episode if it was meaningful for you. Share it with your work colleagues if you think it could help or bring some insight into stuff. This is only the first episode of many. We've got a lot of stories to tell.
Second episode of many.
Not just in AI.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got lots of technology. We touched on blockchain today, and we'll continue to talk about digital and technology and innovation it brings to businesses. But
talk about user experiences and stuff that you guys are seeing a lot of. But with that, I guess we'll see you next week. And roll
the credits.
That's the intro. Damn it. The outro. Check the outro.
Thanks, guys.
Trends blazing, digital fire. AI, rising to the sky.